Hello, welcome one, welcome all, ladies and gentlemen. We are here for the Supreme 7-Star Draft League Season 3 Awards Ceremony. The monotype season, the regular season, has commenced as we get into this first round. We've got some regular season awards to go over, just like we always do, and yeah, let's just kick this off. So, just a quick overview of what we're going to be running through. Kill leaders of this season in the standings, then the all defensive teams, which are all just the best defensive, fat, switching mons, and then all SSSDL, meaning just the best mons of this season throughout all of the teams. And then we've got the individual awards, and we're going to go over the preseason bets as well, which will be fun, all those over-unders from the beginning of the season. And this time, I actually have updated numbers on how everyone has done, so look forward to that. So, starting off with our final standings of the regular season, our 8 playoff teams: Jaden, McGriddleso, Dunkachino, Bashta, Ryan, Wisdom, Ystream, and Fletchhead, being our top 8 teams. Congrats to me, I guess, for getting the top seed at 6-2. Good stuff. And then for the first time ever, we have had a 4-4 team miss the playoffs. Steven, unfortunately, gets to be the bearer of that bad news, followed by Samke at 3-5, Chick at 3-5, Log at 3-5, John at 3-5, and Squid with our worst record this season at 2-6. Lots of first-time playoff makers this season. Fletch in his first season in our league. Wisdom has been here all 3 seasons, but this is his first appearance. And then Dunk did not make it in his first season last season, but will be our 3 seed this season, which is mighty impressive to me, including a nice 4-game win streak in there. Now looking at our kill leaders this season, of course, Ursula Luna from Wisdom's Atlanta Braviaries led us in kills this season, came to all 8 games, 15 KOs, 6 deaths in those 8 games, and plus 9 diff. Very impressive, 15 KOs, goes toe-to-toe with Chi and Pao's 17 last season, for most ever in a single season, or a single regular season. Jaden with Enamorous at 14, Log with 12 from Chi-Yu, Chick with 11 from Archaludon are kind of our top performers, and then we've got another 3 coming in at 10. Very well-rounded top, lots of just KOs. It was definitely a peculiar season with monotype and how that affected how consistently things could pop off. Like you see Iron Moth down there at number 8, only came to 3 games, 9 KOs though, so it was hard to bring, but when he could bring it, it was able to pop off. Definitely an interesting format and how that affected our statistics. Well, with that being said, we can get to the all defensive teams. Starting with all defensive first team, we've got Screamtail from Ryan's Regi Spice, Clef Key from Jaden's Pearl City Pinkertons, Iron Hands from McGriddleso's Bronx Bombers, Galarian Slowking from from Fletchhead's Montreal Malignants, big tongue twister there, Archaludon from Chickadee's Indonesian Infernapes, and Petrarunt from Fletchhead's Montreal Malignants. As you can see, Fletch has 2 first all-defensive team Pokemon. Starting with Screamtail for Ryan, obviously being a fairy type is big to have as a dark resist on the all-psychic team, but Screamtail was just fantastic throughout the season, throwing off T-Waves, recovering, calm minding, doing whatever it needed to do, wasn't too passive, was able to rack up a lot of wins and a pretty solid amount of KOs. Then we've got Klefki for Jaden. This is the second time Klefki has made all defensive first team. It made it with Ryan last season. In both seasons, Klefki came to all 8 games, so that is 16 straight regular season games for Klefki. And of course, it was on the top seeded teams this season and last season, which is mighty impressive. Coming to all 8 games and winning, 6 of those games this season is why it deserves to be here. Screens T-Wave, you know what Klefki does. Iron Hands for McGriddleso, one of the top ranked teams as well, number 2. Of course, just a very fat mon, easy to AV, easy to Fizz-Def, and just use that attack stat secondarily, and it was just powerful on that team as a defensive pivot. Next, for Fletchhead, we're going to skip that and we're going to go to Archaludon first so I can talk about both the Fletches at the same time. Archaludon for Chick, obviously, as a ice neutrality and a fairy neutrality for the Mono Dragon team, was fantastic. It also made an all-defensive team with Samke and the Ghost City Go-Goats last season. But yeah, just a big-time feature. I mean, you can go back and look at week 1 when it was Stamina Body Press and it bit up on Log. Weeks like that, it was also very difficult for me to deal with in week 8. So throughout the season, it was definitely a menace. And then as far as Fletchhead goes, with Galarian Slowking and Petrarunt, Petron came in a little later in the season. It was picked up after week 3, I believe, but even still, it played 5 games, so it played every game it was eligible after it picked up. Usually I'm pretty strict about you have to play games to perform, but it honestly, it played games. In this format where not a lot of stuff came 7, 8 times, Petron played 5, and Galarian Slowking played 6. Both those Pokemon were defensive tandem, really just like lockdown. Both of them were big things where they could switch into each other. AV Glowking regenerating. Petron just doesn't take damage like that. And that's why they both make first team. So congrats to Fletch. Waka had 2 Pokemon make all first defensive team last season with Quillfish and Florges, and this season Fletch does it with Petron and Galarian Slowking. As far as our second team goes, we've got Mega Sableye from Abashta's Hearthome Haunters, Landorus Therian from Ystream's Aussie Arcanines, Bronzong from Ryan's Regice Spice, Diancie from Jaden's Pearl City Pincurchins, Porygon 2 from Wisdom's Atlanta Braviaries, and Politoed from Samkey's Ghost City Go-Goats. Mega Sableye, of course, being a dark neutrality for the Ghost team is a big deal. Being a Ghost neutrality for the Ghost team is a big deal. It's a stupid fat mon. It did some stupid fat things throughout this season. And then Lando T for Ystream, obviously an Intim mon, but on the Mono Flying team is the electric immunity on that team is very big, not to mention a rock neutrality. And that's what it did this season. It came to a lot of games, and no overwhelming one big performance, nothing like Porygon 2's barrier game, but it was consistent throughout the season in coming to games and showing up in those games, and that team made playoffs. So yeah. And then Bronzong for Ryan's Regice Spice, definitely his 1A and 1B with Screamtail. As a Fizdefmon, it had a week where Iron Defense body pressed on Log. I can't believe that's the second time I'm mentioning that happening to Log, but he is Monotark. We've got Diancie for me, who is an easy mon. In a season where Fairy doesn't have a ton of bad matchups, but also it's not playing against Fighting and Dragon that often. Lots of neutral matchups Diancie is really big in as something that's, takes on those neutral hits really well with 150 in both defenses. Easy to be my Spadefmon with AV, easy to be my Fizdefmon, easy to be something in between Calm Mind, Iron Defense, Diamond Storm, all stuff I ran this season. I love Diancie defensively this season as well as offensively. Porygon 2 for Wisdom made all defensive teams last season. Don't remember if it was first or second, but of course he loves this mon and he performs well with it. Of course, it had the one big game where against Mono Steel, it set a barrier and it beat Corviknight 1v1 and then proceeded to beat the rest of the team. And what can you say about that? And not to mention, came to a bunch of other games and was great. And then Politoed for Sam, our last member on this team. A surprising Spadef utility mon for Sam. Definitely raved about this one and how it took on special hits, and it did. I went back and watched the tape, and Politoed was all on that. It came in, set the rain, was able to switch out, come back in as much as it needed to, and help him win a few games this season. And now we've got our all SSSDL teams, starting with all SSSDL, the best 6 Pokemon in the league this season. According to voters, we've got Enamorus from Jaden's Pearl City Pincurchins, Ursaluna from Wisdom's Atlanta Braviaries, Chi-Yu from Log's Undella Wishful Umbreons, Tapu Koko from McCurdle's Bronx Bombers, Gouging Fire from Dunkasino's The Blue Fishes, and Diancie from Jaden's Pearl City Pincurchins. Enamorus, what can you say? 14 KOs, second in the league. Big Contrary Sweeper, big Cute Charm, Special Attacker, Scarf. Did a lot of great things this season. I loved Enamorus and how it was able to be consistent for me throughout the entire season. Ursaluna, the kill leader. What else do you have to say? It was bulky when it needed to be. It was strong when it needed to be. It was slow when it needed to be, and it was fast when it needed to be. Ursaluna did it all this season. Chi-Yu, although on a less than successful team this season, still was in that top 5 of the kill leaders and still had multiple games where it showed out and put up a lot of KOs. And this is Chi-Yu's second time making an all SSSDL team. Koko, on the second best team in the league, had the most KOs with 10 KOs on the Bronx Bombers, and then was able just to set up terrain, which is obviously big utility-wise. It was defensive at times, and it was offensive at a lot of other times. Lots of junctions where Tapu Koko was successful, and that's what puts it up here. Gouging Fire for the Blue Fishes, the number 3 seed, definitely deserved to have some recognition up here. Gouging Fire, although not the most demanding differential in the world, it still came out with 10 KOs and came every single week, I believe. and was, successful in leading that team to that number 3 seed. And then Diancie, the second member of Jaden's Pearl City Pinkertons to make first team, what can I say? I already raved about it on the all-defensive team, but able to be such a great defensive mon, and then as well, it was able to be a great offensive mon. It had games like week 2 versus Squid where it was able to just get Diamond Storms up and basically sweep until I needed it not to. And it had a lot of games where it was just big. It was huge against McGriddleso, which was against one of the other top teams in the league in a matchup I did not love. Diancie was there, and Diancie was there throughout the whole season, and one of the only 6 or 7 mons to pick up 10 KOs. Moving on to the second team, we've got Archuludon from Chickadees Indonesian Infernape, Dragapult from Abash's Hearthome Haunters, Annihilate from Abash's Hearthome Haunters, Galarian Slowking from Fletchhead's Montreal Malignants, Sandy Shocks from McGriddleso's Bronx Bombers, and Kartana from Stevens Little Rock Lycanroc. Ludon was unfortunately the first cut off of that first team. Ludon had 11 KOs. When I was just weighing team success versus individual performance, the combined aspects felt a little low, just slightly lower than those first team guys. But still nice for Chick to land here on the second team. Ludon had a great season defensively as well as offensively, and that's why it lands here. Dragapult actually finally makes an all SSSDL team, despite being that high tier that's drafted in first 5 picks every single season. It is underperformed in both the first 2 seasons. This season, Abashtra is able to make it pop and pick up 9 KOs with it and a great win rate. And same thing goes for Annihilate. Annihilate made all SSSDL third team its first season, in season 1, I believe, with John. And it was great this season, a great win rate, I remember, and came to enough games, had a good diff. Annihilate showed out this season. Galarian Slowking, like we said, defensively, not to mention had 8 KOs, which is not normal for a defensive Pokemon, is one of the reasons it bolsters itself up here, and why the Montreal Malignants made the playoffs. Galarian Slowking was a big part of that. Sandy Shocks for McGriddleso only came to about 4 or 5 games, I remember, but I believe it had 8 KOs to 4 deaths, which is pretty impressive in that amount of time. And yeah, it was big. I saw Iron Defense Body Press as well as just be a pivot, as well as be offensive booster. Lots of things, lots of strong capabilities with Shocks there. And then Kartana for Steven, of course, his highest speed tier on that team. He had to use a Choice Scarf a ton throughout this season. Still managed to get 6 KOs. Wasn't quite enough to get him into the playoffs there, but definitely a good season for Kartana. Moving on to the third and final all SSSDL team for season 3, we're starting off with Iron Valiant from Jaden's Pearl City Pinkertons, Iron Moth from Fletchhead's Montreal Malignants, Terrapagos from Wisdom's Atlanta Braviaries, Victini from Ryan's Regis Spice, Scolipede from Squidbird's Burgess Sale Shrimps, and Lycanroc from John's Edmonton Emolga rounds us off. Iron Valiant for me definitely came on and got active towards the end of the season, a big week 8. And it was consistently a threat throughout the season. It just always didn't have to come in, but it had a great win rate when it came, and a great diff, and was up there with a solid 7 or 8 KOs throughout the season, I believe. Iron Moth, I made an exception for Iron Moth. I usually require 4 games played to even be considered for a team, but Iron Moth only played 3. But Iron Moth had 9 KOs, which was top 10 in the league, and with only 1 death. A +8 differential is really hard to leave off of, so I allowed it to make third team. Honestly though, if it played 1 or 2 more games and had 1 or 2 more KOs, it easily could have been first team, or at least in the conversation. So exception made for Iron Moth this season, but a great season for Iron Moth when it came, and it had 2 really big games. And then Terrapagos for Wisdom was, not jumping off the stats. I believe it was like 8 and 6, something like that, throughout the season, but came to almost every game, if not every game, and then was a consistent threat throughout a lot of games and won a few games by itself. So that's enough for me to say, and they made the playoffs. Enough for me to say it deserves to be here. Victini for Ryan, his strongest mon, he finished as the 5 seed or the 4 seed, and Victini picked up 7 KOs, solid diff. Definitely could have done a little more. I expected a little more out of Victini, but this is still a solid placement. I definitely wouldn't be disappointed in Victini, and led that team to the playoffs as well. Just really a well-rounded effort outside of that as well, though. Scolipede for Squid, definitely the shining star, Daryl. of a team that was not as successful, only 2 wins. But Scoloped's up there in the top 10 for the kill leaders. Hard to say, argue against that. Had a couple games where it really went crazy. It could have gone crazy versus me if it just had Protect. But very strong Mon, and Squid got it to activate. And this is the first time Scoloped's ever been used in our league, so I always love to see stuff like that. And then Lycanroc for John, definitely bolstered here off of an early season success. Had 6 KOs in week 1, finished with 9, I believe. Just enough for me to say, hey, Lycanroc deserves to be here. This is a full season award, not just beginning season, but also not just end season. A combination of it all, and I think that allows Lycanroc to slide in here in that 18th slot. Also, just a reminder, none of these teams are in any order. I know I just said that about Lycanroc, but Lycanroc wasn't actually like the 18th Mon. Yeah, none of these are in any actual order. Moving on to the individual awards, my favorite part of all of this, we're starting off with our Terra Captain of the Year. Definitely a change of pace from seasons before with our Terra Stellar rule, which, if you ask me, in hindsight, I thought was really fun. But we'll see how that works out. But as far as the Terra Caps go, there was no dominant Terra Caps. Like last season, we had Sinistcha, who had like 12 or 13 or 14 KOs. We're looking at guys with 5, 4, 8 KOs, and who only came to 4, 5, 6 games. There was no Terra Cap who came to more than 6 games this season. But that's also because the Terra doesn't make those Pokemon terrifically better as it normally does. But our nominees are Starmie from Samkey's Ghost City Go-Goats, 5 games, 4 kills, 4 deaths, you can read it. Armor Rouge from Dunk Casinos, Blue Fishes, and then Lycanroc from John's, I almost said Little Rock Lycanroc, Edmonton Emolgas, 8 KOs, not the win rate though. And as far as where we're gonna land, our Terra Captain of the Year, Season 3, is Armor Rouge. Shout out to Dunkachino. Only came to 4 games, and it really had a slow start of the season. You can see in week 2 and 3, it really didn't do much. Did come away with the win in week 3. But weeks 5 and 8, it was instrumental in beating 2 playoff teams, which is huge for his seeding, and it was a must-win week 8 for him, and Armor Rouge was there to win that game. So Armor Rouge is your Terra Captain of the Year. And we will move on to the least valuable Pokemon of the year. Who was the poopiest of them all? Season 3. Our nominees are Volcarona from Squidbird's Burgess Shell Shrimps. 0 kills, 3 deaths, only 1 win. Iron Boulder from John's Edmonton Emolgas. 5 games, 1 kill, 4 deaths, with a high-tier offensive Mon. Sick, 1 win. Nihilego, also from John's Edmonton Emolgas. He's going to get 2 nominees. 5 games, 0 kills, 5 deaths. Remarkable. Did come to 2 of the wins, but wasn't able to get it going. And with that being said, your winner of the award is going to be Volcarona. Volcarona's like a 15-point Mon on a Mono Bug team where I thought this thing was going to be popping off and hopefully winning a couple weeks. It could not get going ever. Didn't come week 2, but then came 2 and 3, did nothing. And that's against Steel. It got 0 kills versus Steel. Of course, I know that's because of a certain rock type. Came versus Fletch, couldn't do anything. Came versus not Chickadee. I don't know who she played in week 8, but it wasn't Chick, I'll tell you that. And didn't get any KOs there either. So Volcarona wins the Iron Leaves LVP trophy this season. And yeah, just 0 KOs with this Pokemon I find kind of astounding, to say the very least. Volcarona is such a powerful setup threat, and it just couldn't get it going this season. So it's going to be our LVP this year. Moving on to our Heat of the Year, one of the most fun awards. We've got a couple fun nominees. We've got Burning Jealousy Mimikyu from Jaden in week 2. We've got Ring Out Omastar from Sam in week 5, and we've got Ring Target Blacephalon from Abasha in week 5. Of course, you use Ring Target to trick on the Meloetta in order to successfully sweep the Monopsychic team. Ring Out Omastar used Ring Out to KO a Rotom Wash, and Burning Jealousy was used for Genesect and Fortress for me in week 2. And your winner is... Heat of the Year goes to Omastar. Use Terra, Stellar, Focus Sash, Shell Smash, Ring Out. I mean, you got the film here on the right. Look at that. Oh, takes down to Sash off the Shell Smash. Gets off recover, or off the leftovers, doesn't matter. Here comes Terra Stellar Ring Out. How often have you said Ring Out been used? And it picks up a huge KO there. You gotta know the context. This is mono water versus mono electric. A huge game, and Rotom Wash is a big part of stopping that sweep because Mega Swampert is what Sam really wants to be able to get going. And of course, Levitate's there in the way. You don't even know what does Ring Out does. I don't know what Ring Out does. I believe it does damage based on how much HP the opponent has left. So he knew Rotom Wash would be healthy, and with Terra Stellar, it needed Terra Stellar and +2 to pick up that KO versus Rotom Wash, and it did. So I think that's really cool. I mean, usually useless moves. There's been 3 seasons. Ring Out has never even been spoken of in our league. And frankly, I haven't seen it spoken about in any other league. So very, very cool tech from Sam. Definitely a deserved winner this season. I'm very impressed with that one. Moving on, we've got the most improved Pokemon. 3 very fun candidates this season. We've got Tapu Koko from McGriddle's Bronx Bombers, Chi-Yu from Logs, Undella Wishful Umbreons, and Dragapult from Abasha's Hearthome Hunters. Koko was on Chickadee's 1-win team last season. Chi-Yu was with McGriddle last season and could not get going. Dragapult was with Squidward last season and also did not have a great season. And now they've all 3 got great seasons behind them, but only one can win. And I think it's easily, hands down, got to be Chi-Yu. Even though the team success wasn't there this season, 12 KOs, 4 deaths is great, especially when you consider last season, I believe it was 3 KOs and like 5 deaths. Chi-Yu was an LVP candidate last season and is now an all SSSDL first team member. So I think that goes to show how crazy. Oh, you've got season 2 right there. I was just spitballing. But yeah, went 2-4 last season in 7 games. This season came to a few less games and got a few less wins. But look, +10 diff from last season is mighty impressive to me. And that's why Chi-Yu is her most improved of this season. Bang! Shout out to Log. And now moving on, we've got our Rookie of the Year contenders. This award is presented to the best Pokemon that was not drafted in seasons 1 or 2. So this being their first season. We had Ogerpon Cornerstone win it for Abasha last season, being our first Rookie of the Year. And this season, we've got Iron Moth from Fletch's Montreal Malignants, Kartana from Steven's Little Rock Lycanroc, and Enamorous from My Pearl City Pink Urchins, picking up the most KOs of any of these guys. And of course, that is going to mean Enamorous is your Rookie of the Year for Season 3. You can see on the chart on the right, came to 6 games, had KOs in every single one of those games, and won all but the game against the Poison type game, in which it still got 2 KOs. Enam was fantastic, but I will spoil, it is an MVP contender, so we will talk about it a little more in depth there. But congrats to Enam and Jaden for winning Rookie of the Year here in Season 3. Our Depoy, Defensive Pokemon of the Year, your nominees are Pecharunt from Fletchhead's Montreal Malignant, Screamtail from Ryan's Regice Spice, and Glow King from Fletchhead's Montreal Malignants. He's got 2 contenders because honestly, I went back and looked at all the games. Most people weren't running very defensive sets to win these games, which makes sense. It's monotype. You aren't walling stuff. You're trying to not get swept and then sweep in return. But the one team that was consistently using defensive pivots every single week in and out was Fletch's team. And maybe that's just by proxy of being Poison. But these Pokemon both deserve to be here in my opinion, even in only 5 and 6 games. They were both fantastic. And then Screamtail for Ryan, we've already talked about a little bit, but being that dark neutrality for a mono-psychic team means it can switch in on knockoff with Calm Mind, with T-Wave, with Wish. It was able to do great things this season. But there can only be one. And your winner is Slowking Galar. Will win it for Fletch. Got a list of accolades over here on the right. It walled a +1 Volcarona and killed it with Power Gem, or forced it to switch, and then eventually KO'd it. It killed Gouging Fire. It lived to hit Trick Roomed and killed it back. Very impressive. And then it absolutely violated John as well as Pecharunt. Between those two and Fungus, I don't know, John collapsed versus this team. And then it abused me in week 1. I think I easily could have won if there was no Galarian Slowking versus him in week 1. And because it was AV, it was able to take on my +2 Enam. It was able to take on my +2 Hatterene. Able just to switch in and out and regen up. And, you know, it did its thing versus me. So Galar Slowking comes out with 8 KOs and 4 deaths. Only 3 wins. But that team made playoffs, and I think Galarian Slowking was the best mon on that team, and that's why it lands up here. Now we've got our Coach of the Year. We've got 3 nominees this season, not just the top 3 seeds, but we've got Dunkachino, the number 3 seed at 5-3 plus 2, Jaden, the number 1 seed 6-2 plus 12, and D-Coach Wisdom, the number 7 seed 4-4 plus 6. The cases for all of these guys, of course, I was the number 1 seed. Historically, this award has generally gone to the number 1 seed. Wisdom has missed playoffs his first 2 seasons and jumped up this season to a 4-4 plus 6, which is a good diff. And that's why I wanted to nominate him here, give him some flowers. And then Dunkachino jumping from one of the worst teams in the league last season to the number 3 seed, 5-3. Mighty impressive to me. And your Coach of the Year for Supreme 7-Star Draft League Season 3 is Dunkachino. I think he deserves this one big time. A rough start this season, dropping his first 2 games, then went on a 4-game win streak, lost to Water, which I think is only reasonable. And then beat Ryan in a big week 8 to make himself a playoff seeded team. He needed that win desperately, and he found himself there. Going from one of the worst teams in the league to one of the best teams, that's a huge turnaround, and I think that just shows that Coach turned it around. He took it serious, and he locked in with what I would argue is not that great of a monotype with Mono Fire. Locked in and was able to bring this team to the number 3 seed, which is very, very impressive in my opinion. So congrats to Dunk for this. And you can see just a great team he had this season. Gouging Fire was all SSSDL team, and then Armor Rouge was the Terror Cap of the year, and then a lot of these guys also just were consistently shared throughout the season and all did their things. Everyone besides Rotom Heat and Incineroar got a KO, and great win percentages on a lot of these Pokemon. So congrats, Dunk. Moving on to our final award, the most valuable Pokemon, the MVP. Your nominees are Tapu Koko from McGirl's Bronx Bombers, Enamorus from Jaden's Pearl City Think-Urchins, and Ursa Luna from D-Coach Wisdom's Atlanta Braviaries. Of course, the case for all of these Mons, Enam, the best Pokemon on the best team in the league, Ursa Luna, the highest kill leader, came to the most games, and then Tapu Koko on the second best team, led that team in KOs and was also a utility Mon throughout the season, I think is what pushed it up here as the 3rd best Mon for me this season. In the top 3 best seasons this month. Okay, it was a 2-horse race. It's between Enam and Ursa Luna. Who's winning it? Gotta give it to Enamorus this season. Your most valuable Pokemon of Season 3, immortalized forever, is Enamorus. Like we said, consistent throughout the entire season, able to pick up multiple KOs in all but 1 games. And although it did have 4 deaths in those 6 games, it was on the winning most team, had the 2nd most KOs, led that team to the 1st seed. Hard for me to say anything else, but Enam was Enam VP. Enamorus is our MVP for Season 3, following in the footsteps of Samkey's Chiampao and Samkey's Lapras from Season 1. This is the first season Sam hasn't won MVP, and it's going to be Enam this season. I'm very happy about it. Thank you, Enam, for being a fantastic player on my team, and let's continue that into the playoffs. Thank you very much. Now, we've got our season over-unders. Real quick, we'll try and race through them because there's a lot. There's even more than last season. Starting off with Squid, had an over-under line of 3.5. I try and base the lines, first of all, not personally. I try and base them off their previous success as well as just like, you know, oh, Squid has won, just hypothetically, I don't think this is true, won 3 and 5 games in their first 2 seasons or whatever, and tried to set a line close to it. I think she won 3 last season, so I try and do, you know, 0.5 or in either direction subjectively, kind of just to see where we're landing. Red on the right, on the pie chart on the right, is what you guys voted, what everyone voted. Red means they voted for under 3.5, blue means they voted for over. Red is always under, blue is always over. And most people voted the under on Squid, and Squid unfortunately did hit the under this season at only 2. And I'm going in order of draft pick. Following that is going to be Dunk, and the Blue Fishes only had a line of 2.5 after a struggling season last season. Most people thought he'd hit the over, and he damn sure did. 5 wins will hit that big over for him. He's definitely going to have a higher standard going forward after being Coach of the Year. Great season for Dunk. Following that, we've got Fletch. Had a line of 3.5. One of our new coaches, always hard to set that lines, but we come within 0.5 on the line. He gets 4 wins. He hits that over, beating the majority of people who doubted that 3.5. Following that, we've got me. I had a line of 4.5 after I had a good season 1, a bad season, season 2, able to sneak into playoffs last season, but you guys voted for me to hit that over, and I backed you up. 6 wins. After that, we've got Chick with the Indonesian Infernapes. Had a line of 2-point wins after a bad season, and he just barely hits the over with 3 wins this season. 75% of people get that one correct. And then we've got Wisdom. Had a line of 2.5 after 2 rough seasons. Most people were in the doubting camp, seeing he would continue that, and he turned it around. 33% of people correctly guessed that he would get over 2.5. He comes with 4 wins this season and make playoffs. John had a dastardly evil line of 3.5 for the second season in a row, and he won his first 3 games of the season. What else can you say? You got to feel good if you're one of those 25% who said he's going to hit the over-under going into week 4, surely, right? Yeah, so he fell apart, lost 5 straight, and so 75% of people were correct. He would hit the over-under 3.5. After that, we have got Logan, the Undella Wishful in Umbreons. Had a line of 3.5, and a lot of people saw this as a strong team off rip. 90, all but one, 11 out of 12 people voted Log to smash that over-under, and he did not. 2 wins, didn't even come close. We'll hit the under, but he'll be back and better than ever, hopefully next season. And then we got Steven, who had a tough line because the only season I'm basing off of is season 1, where he won 7 games and made finals. So I gave him a tough line of 5.5. Most people doubted, and I think primarily that's just because it was a really tough line, even though Steven's pretty well respected. He's going to only hit 4 wins and hit that under and miss playoffs. Next, we've got a Bastia, who is a fun line to say. He had a rough season 1, a great season 2. We put him somewhere in the middle at 4.5, and it looks like we had a split decision, 50-50. I believe his pie chart was also 50-50 last season on his line, but he's going to hit over 2 seasons in a row with 5 wins this season. He will bang that over. And then we've got McGriddleson, the Bronx Summer, has been a playoff team all 3 seasons, but just barely in most of these seasons. 4.5 wins was his line, and he hit the 5. 73% of people will land that one. And as we round it out here, we got Sam the Ghost City Go-Goats with a 4.5 line. A tough line after he did come away with 5 wins last season, and I believe he had 4 wins in season 1. He only hits 3 this season, misses playoffs for the first time, and 50% of people land that one correctly at the under 4.5. Ryan in the Red Ice Spice has a tough line of 5.5. 58% of people still believed he could hit 6 wins. The 41% is correct. 5 wins just for Ryan. Still a great season, but a tough line after coming off being the number 1 seed last season. Number 2 seed? Number 2 seed. And then we got Y-Stream and the Aussie Arcanines, our season 2 champion, reigning champ. 4.5 line wins was his line. Most people believed he could just barely came up short with only 4 wins. You can blame it on vacation, blame it on whatever you want. 4 wins is the under for our final coach. And then we've got our kill predictions. Genesec, 9.5, 5 kills, hit the under. Regieleki, 8.5 kills, hit the under. Dragapult had the exact same line last season at 7.5. Last season it hit the under 7.5. This season it hits the over with 9 KOs. Shout out to Abasha for bringing that Mon back to relevancy. We've got a couple more. We've got Mega Swampert over under 8.5 kills. Just barely missed it with 8 kills. Victini, 8.5. Just barely missed it with 7 KOs. Urshifu, Meowscarada, Iron Jugulus parlayed together. See if they could get 19.5. We replaced someone with Iron Jugulus midway through the season, and they still couldn't get it done. 19 KOs. Just barely lose out on that line of 19.5. Needed 1 more KO. And the 41% gets those 2 right, and then 25% lands Victini. So over under. Got a couple more. The forfeits, we had an over under of 1.5. We had 0 last season, and we had 0 this season. I cannot be prouder of my draft league. 0 forfeits in 2 seasons. Man, guys, I am so proud of you guys, and I'm so happy to be able to say that. That's so awesome. And most people hit the under. Everyone except for John voted the under on that one. What the hell, John? New playoff teams, we had a line of 3.5. It was 2.5 last season. We had 3 new last season, but we did also have a couple coaches leave and join last season that were playoff. Anyways, we only had 3 new teams, being Dunk, Wisdom, and Fletch being our new playoff teams. We'll see if I need to adjust that line next season, but the 50% under hits. And then lastly, I believe, oh, yep, we've got the playoff bracket. 3 of the matchups has already happened. 1 is happening in just a few hours. Hopefully, if I get this up in time. We've got McGriddleso versus Ystrom, Flying versus Electric. But Jaden came away with the win against Wisdom. Abastia beat Ryan in their rematch. All of these round 1 games were rematches, and round 2 won't be rematches, I believe. I don't remember if McGriddleso played Fletch, but I don't think Ystrom did. Anyways, Fletch had upset Dunk, and then we're just waiting on Wise McGriddleso, which I think will be a fun game. I think both coaches, McGriddleso won last week in week 8, but I think Wystrom's got a legitimate chance. He's got some strong mons that do things against a mono electric team, so hopefully he can pull that one off. And then as far as semifinals goes, me versus Abastia is a rematch. We played playoffs last season where I beat Abastia, but in week 1 of last season, Abastia smashed me. So it'll be interesting to see where our third match against each other goes. And then, yeah, Fletch is in the semifinals over there as the 8th seeded team, sneaks in and now has a 5-4 record, and he will have a legitimate neutral chance against one of those 2 other teams. It's also nice. I like playing a neutral matchup. I hope Abastia likes playing this neutral matchup. And then the only bad matchup that could really happen throughout the rest of the season is if I happen to run against Fletch in the finals. Other than that, I think everything after this McGriddleso Ystrom game is a neutral matchup. But anyways, guys, thanks so much for watching the award show. I believe every single person in the league this season managed to get some type of mention in this video as far as awards, and will be memorialized on the all-time stats doc, which you should definitely go check out and use all of the time because I think it's very fun. You can do custom filters and sort through a bunch of really cool stuff throughout our 3 seasons of Legacy here in Supreme 7-Star Draft League. And yeah, we've got, a total of 1, 2, 3, 4 games left this season, and I've had a lot of fun, and I'm excited to see how this season ends, regardless of who the winner is. I think everyone here is capable enough to win. And yeah, thanks so much for watching, and congratulations if you won some awards, and good luck to the rest of the playoff coaches as the season continues. Thanks so much for playing this season, guys.